So the way that I was taught, I was taught by a recording and mixing engineer called Hef Moraes, who has given us a golden tip, which I'll show you guys later. He was the recording and mixing engineer for like Annie Lennox, Grace Jones. He did stuff with Whitney and Paul McCartney. Like he's an old school engineer. So when he started working, it was on desks and tape machines and stuff. So the gain structure was a little bit different. But the way that he kind of advised or taught me to set up my drums was to separate the drum kit into the bottom kit and the top kit. So the way that I have it is kick and snare will run to this bottom kit, and then everything else, so hi-hats, crash, ride, overheads, room, claps, and any percussion go to top kit. And the reason I do that is so that I can compress and treat each of those elements differently. Obviously, if I want to do anything to my kick drum specifically, I can go onto that track and you know, make moves there. But I think on my bottom kit, which is applied to both my kick and snare, I'm doing some like low end boosts and adding a bit of top, but nothing crazy at all. Also, when I get to compression, I want to be able to compress the kick and snare separately to like hi-hats or cymbals or overheads or rides or anything. Just so like the kick isn't kind of like fucking up what's going on overhead at all. Sometimes I'll receive really compressed drums, and you know, obviously it's fairly common in stuff like dance music or house. The kick will be like side chained, so it's straight in the middle, like really thumping, and everything else is dipping around it, so the kick really comes through. But if I'm working with like a band, or I think this is, I can't remember if this is live kit or not. Yeah, it's like, fairly sure it's programmed drums, but it's supposed to be a live kit. So I didn't want to. I've compressed the bottom different to the top, so the cymbals and stuff don't get kind of like impacted too much. Yeah, and then I have an all drums one here at the top where bottom kit and top kit and my bass goes. Yeah.
Just to clarify, what do you consider top kit?
Bottom kit, kick and snare. Top kit, I think of like everything above. Well, everything above the snare drum is top kit, so hi-hat and upwards. And then sometimes if I'm working with like a more percussion heavy track, then I might have a percussion aux as well and send that and separate it. On this one, I had these ticks and breathy percussion, and it looks like I've just kind of treated them individually. Yeah, so the main thing is like kick and snare will be my bottom kit. Yeah.
Would you have toms in top kit? And did you say you put the bass with the drums and the drum bus?
Yeah, cool. I feel like there's going to be a lot of drum-related questions, which is cool. So the way that I'm doing it right now, and this does change, just because I try and change my template like every now and then, just to keep me kind of like keep me on my toes a little bit. What I do right now is, I believe, my toms are in top kit, even though they're not above the snare drum like I previously stated. They are in, I've got them here in top. And I believe these were like heavily processed already. Yeah, like so heavily processed. Again, I didn't want them interfering with kick and snare, so that's why they're in the top kit. And the bass is on its own one. Yeah. And then, so that bass line gets sent to this bass aux where I am doing a bit of saturation And then I've got this plugin Soothe. Does anyone use Soothe? A little bit? No. It's kind of it removes problem frequencies, but I'm using it as a side chain. So every time the kick hits, the frequencies that clash between my bass and my kick drum, those frequencies dip out in the bass, so you'll be able to see it. If I like, so when the kick hits, it pulls out from the bass, so the kick still has presence. And then the bass and my drums go to my all drums, and then I treat them all there together. But to be honest, I'm not really doing anything there other than a bit of like SSL emulation. This is Slate Digital, which I quite like. I use them like pretty much on every mix. And then if for whatever I'm like, you know, the low end. This is essentially to control the low end. This aux here. So if that was too much in the mix, and again, there's no right or wrong. Like I know a lot of people who have they'll have like all drums, all bass, all music. So you could have your bass on a separate auxiliary here, and then you could control that as you like. But I just have mine separated out earlier on in a process. So if I want my bass to come down, yeah, I am doing some like individual EQ moves on some of the elements. So this, I had a rolling off some of that top end so it doesn't clash, because it's breathy, I didn't want it to clash with the lead vocal. And then I've added it in with saturation. So that's that. Yeah, I just put a bit of verb on that just to get it to sit behind the vocal a little bit more. This was actually really annoying because this ticky sound was really... Yeah, when it was being played with a vocal, it sounded like it was like loads of little ticks and pops and stuff on the vocal. So I, again, probably, pulled the top end down a little bit and then gave it a bit of a reverb just so it kind of sat behind and didn't interfere so much. And then this is a really cool plugin, the Brainworks EQ. So this is the mono section here, and this is the stereo section. So I am boosting, I've got a shelf there. You can see it down here, it's ever so slightly, like 0.5 dB if I was to boost it more. It's just boosting the high frequency at the sides of all of the top kit. Yeah, so it's just, again, it's like really small moves, but like, you know, could do more. And then I'm dipping 3K here, mono. So in the middle of the mix, I'm dipping 3K out of that. Just because I felt that was where it was interfering with the vocal again. So essentially, like, I'm just trying, with moves like that, with reductive stuff, I'm just trying to carve out space in the mix for like more important elements, i.e. the vocal or kick and bass and stuff like that. So, and then here I would have removed a little bit of like, yeah, bit of boomy stuff. Added a bit of 1K and a tiny bit of top end as well, which I probably shouldn't have done, but hey ho. And then my drum bus here, a bit of drive from this 1073 emulation, and then this is all Slate Digital, which is cool. They've got like a subscription package that you can use. I think it's like £14 a month, and you get access to every plugin that they've got. This is like just adding gain and saturation through different emulations. I was using R-Bass, which is waves, but my license didn't transfer, so now I just switched it to this, which is the Voice of God, which is like a low-end amplifier. I've got it set to 100 hertz, so that is not correct. I had it on the R-Bass, I had it set at 80 hertz, which was just giving the drums just like a bit more kind of like thump. And then currently this is my drum compressor that I'm using, which is a 609, a Neve, which I really like. Yeah, and again, I'm just like adjusting this to taste. So like if I set my threshold down here, less low end's gonna get through. So it's doing kind of like light compression. This is cool. I use this for saturation. Got a saturation knob there, and I've got that set at 50% on the mix, like so it's kind of like a parallel. Lo-fi for distortion, and then again, I kind of do this fairly regularly on my buses. I'll set. I really like this LA2A emulation just because it kind of rounds things off quite nicely. But I set it to limit and just get it to tick. Like it's literally not going more than 1 dB of gain reduction. And that just keeps everything like in check. Like it just keeps the transients kind of like in check a little bit, just so nothing like pokes out too much. And here, this is where I would actually listen in mono quietly and address the level of the kick and snare with the vocal. So I don't want this to overpower the vocal, so I'll just listen really quietly, and then I'll play with the gain on this, and then get that to sit where I want it to sit in relationship to the vocal.